Notable Blue Jays reporter Shai Davidi said that the Blue Jays are expected to get Bo Bichette back into their lineup soon. So that's some great news on the injury front. And they need him in that lineup because they have not looked good without his services 1 through 9. And the Blue Jays also got some positive news regarding Jordan Romano. So we'll break that down on this episode of Jays Digest, as well as an interesting report regarding Cody Bellinger. The Jays were apparently one of the finalists to obtain his services, and what an addition that would have been. So we'll break that down and much more coming up next. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And before we get into anything today, Nick and I are super excited to be working alongside Rentals.ca. And if you didn't know, Rentals.ca is Canada's largest apartment hunting network. And to facilitate your renting needs, whether it be homes, condos, or apartments, they're available coast to coast in Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver, Montreal, Ottawa, Winnipeg, and Halifax.
Yeah, and the website is super clean, super easy to use, super intuitive, and my family has personally used Rentals.ca. Peter, I know you've used it as well, and it's been a phenomenal experience, and it's something that, both of us have used, so we highly recommend trying it out. The link will be in the pinned comment and description, and it's been a phenomenal experience. So it helped us out a lot, and it would also help them out as well. So make sure to check that out, and let's just get right into the video, Peter. There's a lot to get into today. Some good news, some, not so great news, some bitter news if you're a Blue Jays fan coming off that Chicago Cubs series. But let's start with the positive stuff, which is Bo Bichette has made insane progress, faster than we could have ever expected. His return is looking pretty imminent, according to Shai Davidi, like you said, a Blue Jays reporter here. And he posted a whole article, but the summary of it is, regarding the Bo Bichette news, is you can pause and read this if you want. Bo Bichette, basically, he went on an interview and said how hard he's been working. The team is very, very encouraged by it. And Peter, in an injury that looked like he might be out for the season, it's looking like he's going to come back very, very soon, potentially even this weekend or sooner.
I think there was immediate concern that he might be out for the season, although I think that died down pretty quickly with the report that it was nothing serious, and he was expected to be out for a few weeks. We didn't expect him to be back this soon, but you look at the Blue Jays lineup and the way that they've been performing, they did have that one explosion against the Chicago Cubs, but apart from that, and the Boston Red Sox series a couple of weekends ago, it hasn't really been an easy time for the Toronto Blue Jays offense. Their pitching has kept them in it, but they're now only 2 games up of the Seattle Mariners, and they don't hold the tiebreaker over them. So it'll be really tough for them to fend off the Mariners, a team that they simply just can't escape in recent memories. So the Blue Jays need him back as soon as possible, but he's got to be fully healthy because he's got to be back at that shortstop position, and he's got to be playing every day. So I don't want him back if he's 75%. I want him to be a full go, maybe even if he's 90%. I want him back in that lineup. But the Blue Jays should not rush him back if he is not fully ready to go out there and be the Bo Bichette that we all know and love.
Yeah, and the offense obviously has been, very disappointing as of late. And you've discussed it, we've discussed it. Bo Bichette is the major reason, and they discussed it on the podcast. And some people on Twitter universe are saying that, a 70% Bo Bichette is better than, 100% Paul DeYoung. But again, with an injury with, his knee and things like that, you want to make sure that he's healthy because, of course, this is the year we're kind of going for it, but we need to make sure he doesn't have any long-term injuries going forward. And the 25-year-old's avoiding going too stir-crazy as he recuperates, and something Bichette feels he's managed better than expected so far. And that's kind of the big news here is he's recovering way faster and is, quote, moving along a lot quicker than anybody has anticipated. And this is an interesting part here. While he didn't want to speculate on a timeline, a rehab assignment in the coming days is a possibility. So return shortly afterwards. Again, the weekend might be a bit of a, long shot, but I think next week would be a bit more of a conservative and realistic guess there. But like you said, we need Bo Bichette back. We need him in the 2-hole. Whit Merrifield's been stepping up. George Springer's been doing good as of late. Vladdy's starting to see the ball a bit better. Varsho had that huge breakout game against the Cubs in the 3rd game of the series to avoid a sweep there. But at the end of the day, our best hitter is Bo Bichette. Arguably our best player, probably not even arguably, our best player non-pitcher is Bo Bichette. And we need his services back soon because, the Mariners, the Royals helped us out yesterday, but I don't know how long we were able to contain the Mariners and their crazy ways.
Yeah, the Jays got to step it up, and they can't worry about the other teams and what they're doing. They just got to start to win games, and winning 2 out of 3, losing 2 out of 3 against the Cubs, it's not good enough. Now, the Cubs have been playing good baseball as of late. They've got a very good offense, but you got to go in there and take care of business, especially when you're at home. But I want to give a shout out to Santiago Espinal because he actually stepped up and has been pretty good at the shortstop position. Obviously, Paul DeJong was brought in to be that stopgap, and that hasn't worked out as of late. Of course, there's still time until the end of
A
the
little bit of
season,
time.
and there's still time. There's still time for him to contribute. But Espinal took that personally in a sense, and he showed that he could still play. He came up with a couple of big hits. His defense was very good at the shortstop position, so I want to give a quick shout out to him before we keep going with Bo Bichette here. But yeah, it's very simple, Nick. They need him back in the lineup. It's no coincidence that their offense got even worse when he was taken out of that lineup, and it's going to make sense. You taking out a 130, 135 WRC plus hitter and putting in Paul DeJong, who has 2 hits or 3 hits in his Blue Jays tenure, it makes sense as to why they're struggling. But they held down the fort. He's ready to come back soon, and they got to make a run at this. They got to start winning a few more games here.
Yeah, and let's not forget Bo Bichette. His defense has vastly improved this season, and he was a guy who was, might win the Silver Slugger at the position. But a quick update as well on Jordan Romano front is that he is set to return. He's officially back with the Blue Jays. Nate Pearson was optioned, which is a very, very expected move out of them because Nate Pearson was ultimately a guy who had a good stretch, but he's been very, very poor as of late. So he is optioned down. And Romano's back, and that back end of the bullpen, although Jordan Hicks has struggled, it's going to be very, very elite and lethal going forward. Again, you can see here Romano, 15-day IL reinstated, Nate Pearson option down. Very, very predictable. I'm pretty happy. Peter, any quick thoughts on this before we move on to some of the very interesting news regarding Cody Bellinger?
Yeah, I'm just interested to see how this is going to shake out for the back end of the bullpen. Obviously, Swanson, Hicks, and Romano are the 3 guys back there, but who gets the 7th? Who gets the 8th? We obviously know Romano is going to slide back into that closer role, as he should. He's been one of the more consistent relievers, not only in the Blue Jays, but in all of baseball. So that's his role, at least for the time being, unless he starts to blow up and he's not ready for it. But I don't see that happening. So I would still give the 8th inning to Eric Swanson. I think he's been very good all year long. Maybe the stuff is not as good as Jordan Hicks, but he's been so consistent in that role, and he's someone that's been very reliable for the Blue Jays. So that's the main question mark with Romano coming back. There's no really question marks around him. It's more so the guys that are surrounding him in that bullpen and flanking him in the 7th and 8th innings.
Yeah, and I think it'll depend a lot on matchups. Obviously, Jordan Hicks is more prone to command issues, blowing up, giving up tons of runs. But at the same time, if you need strikeouts, I mean, all 3 of those guys are pretty good with strikeouts. But Hicks is obviously a specialist at that, and Swanson to be against lefties. But let us know what your thoughts are on that. We have Chad Green coming back too soon. It's going to be a very, very crazy bullpen. But something else that's crazy was Cody Bellinger, almost a Blue Jay. And Peter, we rewind a little bit back to the Christmas months, December, September. In the offseason, we made a couple videos, and we were convinced ourselves that Cody Bellinger would be a great addition to the Blue Jays, this season, or would have been, at the free agency. And we thought that he was going to, reports were coming out that he was, close to signing with the Blue Jays. Ultimately, it didn't happen. He signed with the Cubs, and stinks a little bit. As you can see here, he has returned to his prime self, his MVP level numbers. He has a 4.2 WAR. He's a left-handed hitter, and just imagining the Cody Bellinger that the Cubs have now in the Toronto Blue Jays uniform would be unbelievable. And reports came out from Shai Davidi. Again, you can pause. Essentially, the Blue Jays and Bellinger were very, very considered. They were close, but ultimately the Blue Jays couldn't guarantee, I guess, going and playing every single day and giving him that opportunity. You can see at the bottom there, and they ultimately chose with, I guess, going with Kevin Kiermaier, which is very, very interesting. Any quick thoughts on this? And I guess the Blue Jays, your thoughts as well on the Blue Jays picking ultimately Kevin Kiermaier over Cody Bellinger. Now, Cody Bellinger, we assume, would have costed more, definitely would have costed more. But Cody Bellinger, he's been pretty poor in the past, but this year he's back to way better than what he's been ever since 2019. So it stings a little bit if you're a Blue Jays fan, though it does make sense them going with Kevin Kiermaier, a very, very elite defender, but who was also injury prone. But I don't know. It's a bit wild. The Jays almost had an MVP caliber player in their lineup this year. Desperately needed.
Yeah. Yeah, you would have had to believe that the Blue Jays were one of the favorites to go out and get him, because you look at their track record of bringing in guys that have struggled and revitalized their careers. So you look at Robbie Ray, Marcus Simeon in recent memory, and those guys have all gone on to sign big contracts. So the fit would have made perfect sense for Bellinger to come here. He wouldn't have been guaranteed everyday playing time, but if he was playing the way that he's playing right now with the Cubs, he would have won that position and he would have been out there in center field day in, day out. He's not even playing center field every day for the Chicago Cubs. He's been playing a little bit of first base. But when I saw him at the Rogers Center and I was there at the weekend series, he just looks so confident. And I'm glad that he's back to his old form, because baseball is better when Christian Yelich and Cody Bellinger are playing the way that they were playing in that year that they won MVP. So it was great. It was great to see those two guys get back to what they used to be. I think Bellinger is going to get paid in the offseason. He's hitting over 330. He's getting on base at a ridiculous clip. He just looks like a great player again, and it would have been a great addition to the Blue Jays. I don't know if he would have performed to the exact standard that maybe he had set beforehand, but it's definitely interesting, and it definitely would have been an upgrade over Kiermaier, although he has been phenomenal this season. So I think the Blue Jays are okay with the decision that they made.
Yeah, and who knows, how much of the change was getting out of the bright lights of, the Dodgers. Maybe it was in a hitting, a Cubs hitting coach adjustment, but a big thing with Bellinger is his strikeout numbers are just completely just down so much. The past 2 years when he struggled, you can look at those strikeout numbers there, they were through the roof, and ultimately he fixed something. Happy for him. Would have been nice to see that in the Jays uniform. He's also an elite defender. Kevin Kiermaier is obviously a much better defender. What? Maybe next year. Exactly.
Maybe next year.
It's going to cost him some money, but at the end of the day, the Jays almost had a guy with a 4.2 BWAR. It would have made for a very, very fun season. And the idea of getting Cody Bellinger was just so fun anyway, because you know that his ceiling is an MVP caliber player. But at the end of the day, I think the Jays are happy with, Kevin Kiermaier, Dalton Varsho, and those guys. You can't be too, regretful when you get Kevin Kiermaier having the season that he's having. But that'll wrap it up. Pretty wild video today. Lots of news went down, and the Cody Bellinger thing, albeit a bit frustrating, it is good for baseball, like you said. But that'll wrap it up. Blue Jays have some huge baseball games playing. Almost every game feels like a playoff game at this point because of the way the standings are lining up. So it's going to make for a crazy end of August and September. So stick around for the ride, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks.